Listen, I know that Wednesdays are normally reserved for your call-in show, but tonight I had to make the exception and change it up just a little because you see who's next to me. I got the man with me, Larry Krueger. I love talking with Larry. I know we're going to have some difference of opinion on what's going on with the quarterback position. Should be a lot of fun. The title of the show is The 49ers Make It Impossible to Trust Their Quarterback Evaluations. Maybe Larry disagrees with me, but we're going to talk about it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, I got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Larry Krueger with me. What's up, Larry? How you doing?
What's up? What's going on, Jesse? How are you, man?
Going good, man. It's a little bit different being on that side of things. Usually I'm on your show and you're kind of doing the hosting thing, but you get to kind of just kick back and give your takes on this one.
I know, which is kind of, when you host these things, people think it's like the same, but it's quite a bit different being on somebody else's show than hosting your own show. Because, I got sponsors and I got formats and buttons to push. Now I can just kind of sit back and chill and read the chat and enjoy myself. So I'm feeling good.
It's nice. Do you think you're a better host or a better guest?
Ooh, I think I'm probably a better guest just because it's easier to be a guest.
All right. I feel it.
But some days when, here's the thing, we all get into our rhythm. When I get going and I feel like I'm saying what I want to say, the way I want to say it, and I'm in a good rhythm, I feel good as the host. But then there's other times where I just enjoy hearing, guys like yourself or whoever's on the other side choose the angle and phrase the question. And then I can just kind of think about it and, go with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit easier being on that side, but I don't know. I kind of like being in control. I think I might be a better host than I am a guest, but we'll see.
Well, you're a good guest.
So this is
You're
good.
a very good guest.
This is good because that means that the shows have been phenomenal when I've been a guest and you've been the host. So now that we're flipping roles, maybe it'll be the best show we've ever put together. We'll see. We'll let the audience decide on that one.
Big challenge.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. Big challenge. All right, let's talk about it though. There's a lot that's happened this week. And obviously everybody's got their opinions on what's going on. And I saw that you'd put together a list of like 10 things that you took away from the owners' meetings. Thought it was a great list, but it's different when you type it out and I read it versus you actually laying it out and giving nuances as to why you think the things that you think. So owner meetings, what were your takeaways from those?
Well, I mean, it's good to see Shanahan and Lynch, commenting. I mean, because to me, every time these guys talk, the story gets advanced. So we always learn a little bit more. So it was weird. It was like 3 days ago, I felt like, man, there's not a lot going on in Ninerland. And then all of a sudden Lynch talked and there were so many things to talk about and so many things to touch on. And then Shanahan talked the next day, and then Jed wound up talking the next day, and it's given us kind of their perspective, all three of them, on a number of things. Most importantly, I think Trey Lance. And so I think it's been incredible to hear the way they phrase things, the words they choose, the angles they use, what they say, what they don't say. And I think it's been really, really revealing.
Okay. Fish and Chip says Larry streaming like a triathlete. He is. And I don't know if you noticed, the last time I was on with Larry was about a week ago. Larry's got a new mic. He's got a new camera.
Yeah.
He's got a surprise coming for the studio. So, keep your eyes locked in on Larry for sure. But he was tired of looking like he was on that McDonald's Wi-Fi. And so he had to step his game up. And I appreciate it.
That's right. I seriously, someone said, "Hey, Krug, step it freaking up." And I said, all right.
I got you.
You're right. I hear you.
So, okay. So you said that there was a lot that we learned. And we thought, hey, maybe it'll be a little boring, might be tough to pull content from. So let's just go every step of the way. Day one, John Lynch gets up there. What do you pull from that day? What are your thoughts leaving day one?
Okay. The first one was, his big headline was Brock Purdy's the leader in the clubhouse. But
Mm,
to me, that's just, come on, that he should be the leader in the clubhouse. You
for sure.
won playoff games with this guy. If he's not the leader in the clubhouse, something's really wrong with your clubhouse. So, you know, but then the other thing was it was a really enlightening dialogue because when he talked about Brock, Jesse, the way he described it just kind of reminded me that all of the conversation, and I thought of you actually, and I thought of stuff that you and I have done and stuff that I've done with other content creators where we're talking very specifically about, well, if Brock's back week 1, wait a second, if Brock's not back until week 4, wait a second, if Brock's back in the middle of the preseason.
Right.
And the reality is it's so fluid. It could be 5 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 8 months. So this whole we know exactly what the Niners are going to have to do and how long he'll be out, we really don't know. And it just was a reminder that, you know what? Even and then the next day was even a bigger reminder when Shanahan was like, there's a chance that Brock, won't heal correctly. And that's a reality of his situation as well. So all bets are off. It's not like we know he's going to be back this year. We don't. And it's not like we know when he's going to be back this year. We don't. So that was my first takeaway, that one, he was the leader in the clubhouse, but two, that the timeline is beyond fluid. It's just like it's all over the map and it's guesswork. And maybe within a month from now, we'll know a lot more about the timeline. So I thought that was the primary takeaway. The secondary takeaway was, we like Trey on our team right now. My God. I mean, if I'm at a party with my wife and somebody says, "Hey, Larry, you happy with your wife?" And I say, "Oh, I am happy with my wife right now," she's going to slug me. She's going to slap me. I'll show you right now. She'll start calling me Mr. Right Now. I mean, I'll be hearing about right now. Would you like your
Right.
dinner right now? Would you like your laundry done right now? You know what I mean? So that was, I don't know, very either. Why wouldn't you just say, why can't they ever say, I really like Trey Lance. Man, Trey's a great young prospect, and we're so excited that he's finally going to get out there. Man, guys, it's been a long time in waiting, huh? But man, we're so excited about his arm and his legs and his mobility and what he's how he's learning this offense and how he's grasped it. And we can't wait for him to get out there and play. Finally, God, Kyle's excited. I'm excited. The player, none of that. It's we like Trey on our team right now. And this was on the heels of Trey's got to play, but we got a team that's ready to go. And that's the challenge. That's what he said at the combine. That sounds like, why is that a challenge? We talked about that. And then Shanahan followed it up the next day with praising Sam Darnold. I've always loved Sam Darnold, but not praising Trey. The only positive things that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan say about Trey Lance is non-football things. It's about his character. It's about who he is as a person. And I can understand why they're glowing because he is a terrific person, but you drafted him 3rd overall. So why aren't you talking about how excited you are about him as a quarterback and as a prospect? Instead, you are bringing in Sam Darnold and giving him guaranteed money and now Trey Shanahan started his speech with, Trey would have had a great year if he had played last year. And then he finishes it with, yes, Trey and Sam Darnold will be sharing reps in camp as they battle to see who's the number 2 to Brock Purdy. But nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. We haven't changed our thoughts about Trey. Last year, we gave him the quarterback job. We didn't think twice about it. This year, he's splitting reps to be number 2 with Sam Darnold, but nothing's changed. Still love him. So, do you see what I'm saying? It's like talking out of this side of your mouth, talking out of that side of your mouth. I don't I think what they're saying at this point, I don't think can be taken at face value. I think you have to interpret. I think you have to use your brain and evaluate everything. You have to filter everything that Jed says, everything that John says, everything that Kyle says. And it's not Larry Krueger being paranoid. It's this is the game that they're playing right now, which is we're trying to shop him over here, but we may not get our price over here, so he may be back with us. So they're dancing this dance. They're walking this balance beam, trying to stay right there in the middle. So if he stays, if they goes, if he, they don't want to say the wrong thing that devalue him, but they don't want to get the fans all excited. They don't want they you know what I'm saying? They're literally serving multiple masters here, trying to get everything done at once. And to me, it's very interesting to watch. And it makes me think that they're on the verge of trading him in April.
Dang. Okay. I'm going to take it a step back and then we'll get to that. Cause that was a good one. That was a bombshell. So I think when we listened to Lynch talk, there was a clear optimism that Purdy would be back. He even threw out, hey, training camp. Like we believe that he'll be back by training camp. Everything's going well. We'll know more at 12 weeks. We won't, we don't fully know till then, but we think training camp. We believe in that. Then when Kyle talks, he's like, well, it could be 8 months. You're like, wait, well, hold on. That's not even close to training camp. And then he threw out, between weeks 1 and 4 is kind of our expectation. Well, it's like, well, the day before, the expectation was not between weeks 1 and 4. That's not what we were sold. We were kind of sold training camp. So little bit different conversation there. And yeah, I do agree. I mean, they definitely went out of their way to praise Sam Darnold, praise Brock Purdy. They didn't say anything bad about Trey Lance, but they didn't go out of their way, it felt like, to make sure that they propped him up. So do you think the 49ers in this situation, it sounds like you think they're going to trade him. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think that the 49ers could have done a better job of putting a PR spin on it, regardless of what they may be thinking internally. Shanahan has this way of just kind of over talking a lot of the times. And we've liked it in the past because you get the answers that maybe you wouldn't get from Lynch, but now it seems like Lynch has turned into the over talker as well. So do you, like, just from a PR standpoint, even if you are trying to trade Trey, is that the right way to go about it? If you were trying to trade Trey Lance behind the scenes, Larry, would you do it the way the 49ers did it, or would you do it in a different manner if you were in front of the media?
Well, that's why I keep thinking that they're going to trade him, because I would do exactly what they're doing. I would stick to the truth. Don't start throwing out a bunch of things I don't believe. And 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 say, so what can they say positively about Trey that's not a lie, is that they really like his makeup and they think more highly of his makeup now than they did when they drafted him, because he definitely has a good makeup and he's definitely a solid person. But I also would be saying what I heard Lynch say. I mean, I'm the reason I originally thought they were going to trade him was because his timeline doesn't add up to Brock, and doesn't add up to their timeline anymore. I'm really, talking to Vish last night on his channel.
Anymore? I don't think it ever did, Larry.
Well, I think initially it could have lined up, because they had just been to the Super Bowl. They had a lot of goodwill at the time, and if they had gone with Trey and committed to Trey early and played him early and developed him quicker, then maybe they would still have plenty of time to compete for Super Bowls. But they I think they like the idea. I think ultimately, Jesse, they traded up, not necessarily specifically for Trey Lance. They traded up for a rookie quarterback. They knew they needed a quarterback on a rookie deal. And so they traded up in the midst of the evaluation process, because they ultimately knew that there was a bunch of rookies and that if they got to the third pick, they'd get one. And so that, I think, is what it was about. And now that Brock Purdy has given them what they want out of it, which is a quarterback on a rookie deal that allows them to pay Bosa, pay Ayuk, have all these great football players, go get Javon Hargrave. Now they look at Trey as just kind of like gravy. Like, hey, you know what? If he fulfills his potential, awesome. And if he doesn't, oh well. We got what we wanted out of it. We've got the rookie. We've got the quarterback on the rookie deal, and we've got Javon Hargrave with him. So I think because Purdy has succeeded, they're no longer wed to the rookie quarterback named Trey Lance because they're wed to the rookie quarterback named Brock Purdy, or at least the quarterback on the rookie deal. So I think now they're like, hey, you can compete again. Last year, there was no real competition. This year, we'll let you compete against Sam Darnold. And personally, I actually don't even think that that's real. I think they're going to move Trey either way. I just think that Sam Darnold is the replacement up front, and then they'll draft another replacement and wind up trading Trey. That's what I think is going to happen here. And I think ultimately what they wanted was the quarterback on the rookie deal. They have that now. And I think they were hoping Trey would develop faster. They liked the process. They liked the prospect, but they never were committed to losing a bunch of games in the present while he cut his teeth in the NFL. And they're definitely not now, as I think there's a little bit more heat dialed up on them from getting close, but no cigar on the Super Bowl the last couple of years. So now I think there's some heat on them. Now they're going with Brock for sure. And I think they're going to allow people to know that I think what Lynch wanted to tell everybody is we like this guy and we're in a good position. And if you want to bowl us over and give us a great price, we'll move him. But as far as we don't know what that is, like that could be a first, that could be a second, that could be a third, that could be anything. I mean, they're going to decide what bowls them over.
So you think that they are willing to trade him if they get what they think he's worth, but they're not going to just trade him for anything. Is that I just want to clarify this.
Shanahan said when he was asked about his quarterbacks, I feel we're in a very good position at quarterback. I hope all three of our quarterbacks are with us. But then he basically went on to say that we'll listen to trade offers. And he didn't say specifically for who, but we all know they're not listening to trade offers for Brock. They just brought in Darnold. So if they're listening to trade offers, it's going to be for Trey. So, yeah, I think that they're not going to give Trey away because why? He doesn't even make a lot of money. They can let him sit there, but they also care about Trey. They want to see him do well. They want to do right by him. They know he needs to play. That's why what Lynch said at the combine, Jesse, was literally saying it to us, but it was like he was saying that to other GMs. It was like, hey, John Lynch here. Hey, Tom Telesco, or fill in your blank GM name.
Right.
Hey, man, Trey's just got to play. Trey's got to play, man. That's the problem. That's our challenge, Tom, because, we got a club that's ready to roll, as you know, and he just got to play right now. And we love him. And, we never stopped loving him. Heck, we love him now more than we loved him when we drafted him. But Tom, we just got to win right now. And he just needs a little development time and some field time. And we just don't have it to give to him. So that's why he's available to you at this once and only cheap price of, fill in the blank.
3 easy payments of $9.99.
3 easy payments. Yeah. Plus you get 2 for no, but I think that's his pitch is like, hey, I don't want to trade this guy. We love this kid. This isn't a Zach Wilson situation where he's persona non grata and you got to get rid of him. And who cares if you get rid of him at a loss? We love this kid. We believe in this kid. His timeline just doesn't jive quite with ours. So, we're fine to bring him along slowly, but heck, if you want to bowl us over with an offer, we'll sure as heck listen. And then they'll pull the trigger. Watch.
So I read the situation a little bit different. I do think that there's a possibility that Trey's traded, but I think it would be an in-season trade if it happens. And the reason that I think that is because the way that they were talking to me was more like, hey, we brought Sam Darnold in we're giving him 3.5 guaranteed with the opportunity to make up to whatever the number was, 10 or what, I forget what the
11 and
number,
a
full
half, I
number.
think.
Okay. You said 11.5?
I think.
Okay. So we brought him in at this guaranteed 3.5 with the possibility to make 11.5. Well, the only possibility he has to make 11.5 is if he can play. And we also know that a lot of teams would allow him to be the backup at the very least. So the only way we can actually sell him on taking this third string job potentially is by letting him know he has a chance. Like, you have a chance to compete here. Our starter is out. We love Brock. He's our starter, but we don't know when he's going to come back. We got Trey, who we like Trey, but I mean, he hasn't proven anything yet. If you can beat Trey out, you might be our starter. You might be able to showcase yourself and you might be able to get paid in the process. So that's probably what they told him in negotiations. So now you fast forward and you get into a situation where you're being questioned on this same thing. You can't say, well, it's Trey's job. Darnold's here to be whatever. You would be going back probably on what you told Sam Darnold. Now, I do think that there's a legitimate competition. However, Shanahan left himself some outs. He was clear in saying, because he was asked, so are we talking a 50-50 split? What's going on here? Well, we're going to evaluate it every step of the way. So we're going to figure it out after mini camp, OTAs, all these things. And if they're close, then yeah, we'll continue to have them split time. But if one guy pulls away at any step in this process, they're going to be the guy getting the snaps. That's just the way it's going to be. So really, I mean, that switch could happen after OTAs for Lance or Darnold, by the way. If one guy is clearly better and they believe that, then you get into the next phase of the offseason. All of a sudden, we're at a 100-0 split because this guy's clearly better. So that's the way I read the situation. Now, obviously, if Sam Darnold is your starter for any reason above Trey, well, now Trey, it makes no sense to keep Trey Lance. Once Purdy's back and you don't need the 3 quarterbacks, or you can't carry 3 quarterbacks, depending on what they do with the league rules, that's when the opportunity can open up to trade Trey Lance potentially. If he's not good enough to beat out Darnold in your eyes, you already have Purdy, who's your guy. Now is when you can trade him. But before Purdy gets back, I think it's really hard to trade him. And I still think that they do believe, hey, Trey could be really good. We're just not invested in making sure that we give him all the opportunity to do that anymore. We believe in the skill set, but we don't believe in taking the time to make sure that he's that guy. We had that opportunity last year. We were willing to invest it then. Now it's been a whole nother year. He got injured. Sucks for him. He's going to have to prove that he can be that guy. That's the way I read the situation.
Well, all I'll say to that is, what do you think's going to happen to Trey Lance's trade value once he loses to Sam Darnold?
I don't think
Don't
by
you think
saying that he's competing with Sam Darnold has the trade value high anyways. Once you say you're competing with Sam Darnold, you have you've done everything you could.
But he could beat out Sam Darnold, and they might not be close. Where if he loses to Sam Darnold, he's really going to be worth nothing. So I don't know. I mean, it really, and also the other thing was, Shanahan talked. I mean, if you really want to sum this up in a very short amount of time, in 2 days in Arizona, the Niners brass talked up Brock Purdy, complimented Sam Darnold, told us that there's a possibility that there's only going to be 2 quarterbacks on the roster. And we got the entire draft sitting right there that's loaded with all kinds of attractive day 2 and day 3 quarterback prospects, any of which they could draft because they got 3 picks at the end of the 3rd round. They're probably all going to be there. So you want DTR, you can get him. You want the guy from Utah State, you can get him. You want Hayner, you can probably get him. You want Tanner McKee, you might be able to get him. My point is just that they want, I don't know that a Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy trio even works for them the way they want to cut down their roster. I think it only works if Brock Purdy's out for the year. if Brock Purdy's not out for the year, it doesn't really work,
I
because then
agree.
you have Brock and you have Sam. Okay, those are your two guys, and then you got a third guy, and let's say that's Trey. And what, you're going to make Trey Lance inactive all year, and he's just going to sit there? I don't think that is going to work. To me, that third guy only works if that third guy is a practice squad developmental, DTR. If it's Brock's your one and Sam's your two, and you have, DTR sitting there, that does work, because you can make him inactive. You can put him on the practice squad. You can protect him every week if you want to protect him. But that works. But I don't know that, does Brock and Darnold and Trey work when the head coach has stated he may have go with two active quarterbacks on the roster. So I
No.
don't know. Right there, that already makes me think that they're not going to go with Trey. And then when you look at all the prospects that I think would be great fits for them at quarterback, and they're, by the way, looking and meeting with these players. They met with DTR. They went to the Stanford Pro Day. They're standing right there. If you told me, Jesse, that John Lynch really loves Tanner McKee, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I would not be surprised by that.
No.
If you told me they love Jake Hayner or Clayton Tune, I wouldn't be surprised by that. So they're well in position to land one of those players. The three that they have right now, I don't know that there's a fit for them, all three on the roster. And then Sam's the guy who just got there. So you think, even though he's kind of the low man on the pole, he probably has some job security, because they actually just handpicked him like the other day. And then Brock, they just told us, is their best quarterback, and they're going with him. I mean, plus they've had several cryptic comments in the last couple weeks that make you think that it sounds like they're on the verge of trading Trey. And then I'm looking at the quarterback market, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm not in the top 10 picks, I probably can't get a top tier quarterback. And then who would I rather have if I have the 28th pick or 24th pick or 22nd pick, and I'm one of these teams that doesn't have a quarterback? Would I rather have Hendon Hooker, who may not even play this year, or I'd rather have Trey Lance? I think I'd rather have Trey Lance. So I think it's reasonable to think that some team between 10 and 50 could say, hey, we'll give you a couple picks. Here, give us Trey Lance. We'd rather have Trey than Hendon Hooker. We'd rather have Trey than Tanner McKee, or whoever the next quarterback on their board is. I don't know that Trey's better than all these guys in round one, but in my mind, he's better than a few of them. But he's definitely better than that next tier. And I think where he would go in this draft and what the Niners would take back for him, I think the Niners would probably take back, especially if they like Brock and believe in Darnold, they would probably take back a top 50 pick for Trey. I probably wouldn't. I would probably want more like a top 25 pick, but I think they might take a top 50 pick, and easily Trey is the best quarterback after the top 4, and they're supposed to go in the top 7 or 8 picks. So, I mean, if you're 16, you're 18, you're Washington, you're one of these teams that doesn't have a quarterback, it sounds crazy to say Trey Lance would get a first-round pick, but who do you rather have? You want Hendon Hooker or you want Trey Lance? I'll take Trey Lance over Hendon Hooker. And I think other teams would too.
You might have to kick in like a third to kind of offset it or something like that. I don't necessarily disagree with a team being willing to trade for a Trey Lance, but your synopsis, which I agree with, of what happened with these owner meetings and what was said, is not one that breeds lifting the trade value of Trey Lance, in my opinion. I think you've plummeted the trade value. Any value that was there, you've basically just told the world, listen, I don't like Trey Lance that much. Like that's what
Who
I
did you
took
get?
out of that.
Where are you getting that from? Are you getting that from John or from Kyle?
From the whole situation. If you're willing to let him compete with Sam Darnold, this is the same quarterback who, I mean, this guy's a horrible decision maker. He has like 90 turnovers and 55 starts. Nobody wants Sam Darnold to potentially be their starter for any amount of time, if they're being honest. And you're willing to let that guy compete with a guy that you were willing to take over your organization a year ago. That tells me you're completely out on this guy potentially. Like that's the optics you're giving it. Whether that's what you mean it to mean or if that's what you actually think, that is the optics you are giving to me if I'm looking to trade for Trey Lance. That's what I believe. So you've already plummeted his trade value if I'm looking to buy Trey Lance. So what's the big deal if you wait a few more weeks? Because I agree with you. I do agree with you that this quarterback room doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'll also say this. I could see a scenario where they remember when they gave Nate Sudfeld $2.5 million last year guaranteed or whatever it was. We're like, oh, there's no way he doesn't make this team. Well, they draft Purdy round 7. He comes in, blows their socks off. All of a sudden they move Sudfeld because that's the only option you really had. Sam Darnold a year later is making
which
$1
is
million
hilarious that
more.
you're saying that, by the way, because literally there were more than one Niner content creator that when the question of the roster cut down was broached in the 72 hours before the decision, they were still using words like, well, obviously they're going with Nate Sudfeld.
Right.
I mean, because they've got $3 million invested in him, and that's why they're obviously going with Nate Sudfeld. And then a lot of people just kind of scrubbed those comments off, and I don't think, I think
Exactly.
suddenly it wasn't so obvious. So
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So imagine now. So now imagine that Brock Purdy isn't back till let's say week 3 or 4, something like that. Okay, they do draft a quarterback because they want to continue to draft a quarterback. They like this process of hey, every year we're going to draft one. Let's see if we can hit again. We'll continue to do this. So they draft a guy. Brock Purdy comes back. They know he's the starter. They did actually do a competition. They're like, Sam Darnold does actually suck. Turns out we can't fix him. He's just not very good. The inflation of, okay, so instead of $2.5 million or $3 million for Sudfeld, yeah, it's more money, but the salary cap's gone up. So really, we're talking about the same amount of money. I could see a scenario where it's like, yeah, Sam Darnold doesn't fit. We do like this rookie. We want to keep him. Trey Lance was good enough to be the second guy. Purdy's our starter. We'll try to trade Sam Darnold. Maybe there's a desperate team 4 weeks into the season that lost their quarterback that's willing to look. But if not, no big deal. We'll cut him. It's $3.5 million. Whatever. We were willing to blow away $2.5 million last year. I could see that scenario too.
I mean, I'm just reading first of all, there's a couple people in the chat who are like, Krug's got to be the number one hater of Trey.
Well, I'm going to give you, by the way, I'm going to give you a chance to talk through that because you get this a lot, by the way.
Seriously,
you get this a lot.
If there's anything that's bullshit, it's that. I mean, come on.
Right.
I hate to say that, but that's such BS. If you Google Pat McAfee, Larry Krueger, Pat McAfee, you're going to find a video of Pat McAfee reading on his show a quote from me saying that the 49ers are going with Trey Lance, like well before the draft, like maybe 10 days to 2 weeks before the draft. I was a Trey advocate. I was the guy saying they should go with Trey. My opinion of Trey has never changed. Not once, not since the beginning to today. And I'm not saying that I would trade Trey. I'm saying they're going to trade Trey. Do you see the difference?
Very,
I
very
want to
different.
trade Trey versus they want to trade Trey. I'm telling you what I think they want. I'm not telling you what I want. I'm telling you what I think they're going to do. So that's the difference.
Here's what happens,
I'm not
Larry.
rooting for Trey Lance to be traded. To me, I've got one agenda and one agenda only. I want to see the 49ers win. I don't fault them for going with Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy has never lost. Brock Purdy's been easily the best quarterback that I've seen with wearing a Niner uniform going back to Steve Young. Maybe Jeff Garcia, but probably Steve Young. So I definitely like what I've seen from Brock Purdy, but I'm not saying they should trade Trey. I'm saying I think they're going to trade Trey. People do understand the difference, right?
So
I think you should
Larry,
trade Trey. That's an opinion. I think you should trade Trey. I think they're going to trade Trey is a totally different opinion than I think they should trade Trey.
Here's what happens. And it's funny because you and I get the same thing said about us, but on the opposite side of the fence. Okay. So you get the, hey, you're a Trey Lance hater and a Brock Purdy lover, apologist, whatever.
To
I
be honest,
get,
Jesse, when the Niners drafted Brock Purdy, I screamed the F word and was like pissed because I was convinced that he was just a weak armed college quarterback and a career backup. And that he was, and I couldn't believe they would invest a draft choice in a backup quarterback. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a CJ Beathard all over again. More picks invested in backup quarterbacks. I didn't like it at the time, but I was the only person in the room. Right. So then I went and did a deep dive over the next 4 or 5 days in Brock Purdy, and I started to see what they saw. Right. And then when I saw him in minicamp, he was a little bigger, a little stronger, and a little bit better arm than the guy that I saw on the film. And then I'm like, I really like this guy. Then I saw him in camp and I really liked him. And when I saw him throwing like on the move and hitting guys in stride, that's when I'm like, if this guy looks like anything in the preseason, I'm going with it. This guy's the real deal. And he looked great in the preseason. And so I went with it. And that's it. So now I'm kind of synonymous with rah Brock Purdy. So people in this weirdo world of Niner creation um, are assuming that because I like Brock Purdy, I must be anti Trey Lance. And then I suggested they trade Trey Lance. I suggested they were going to trade Trey Lance, and then I thought I could see why. Then suddenly I'm the anti Trey Lance, and I'm not anti Trey Lance. I'm actually probably one of the few. I was one of the biggest advocates for Trey Lance, but I do think they're going to trade him, and I've stated
so,
it. And because of it, it's like I've got all these people coming at me.
but that's what I'm saying. Like we get it from opposite ends. So my story is a little bit different. It's funny because when they first looked at Trey Lance, I said the marriage between Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan will be a disaster because I didn't trust that Kyle would want a project, essentially, a high upside project. Then the more that once I started like watching all 22 of Trey and realizing the offense he came from and seeing what his strengths were, I'm like, wow, this guy actually really fits Kyle's system. I think this is going to be the pick, right? And so I had come to that conclusion about a month before the draft and was beating that drum. But also during that process, before they actually moved up to number 3, I said, hey, and this was on Grant's show. I said, there's guys that I like in this draft at 13. Not at 13, but there's, at that point I said, hey, let's go JC Horn round 1. Let's go quarterback round 2 or round 3. And I said, a guy that I really like is Brock Purdy, but he decided not to come out this year. I have a 3rd round grade on him. So fast forward to the next season, next college season, I'm getting in arguments with Rich Madrid online or on Twitter about Brock Purdy and how hey, keep your eye on this kid. I really like him. He's like, oh, he's a bum. He's a bum. He's a bum. And so I'm like, all right, we'll see. Well, now his stock plummets to round 7. Okay. So I'm mocking him to the 49ers. Like, the 49ers should get him. When they draft him, I have a tweet celebrating the pick. We got Brock Purdy. This is a great pick. This is a steal, blah, blah, blah. So fast forward to Brock Purdy's now on the team, and I've got to choose. And this is, by the way, the 49ers do this to us, right? Like, you have to choose a side. It doesn't mean you don't like one of them, but you do kind of have to choose where you're going to plant your flag. You have to have an opinion. Larry, you can't get up here and fanboy out and just be like, well, whatever the 49ers want to do, I'm cool with it. Great show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. That's not the way it works. You got to have an opinion. Like, people don't tune in for us to be wishy-washy and not have an opinion. So now what's happened is you've got to choose between these two guys. I am planting my flag in Trey Lance. Now all of a sudden I hate Brock Purdy because I'm planting my flag in Trey Lance. You are planting your flag in Brock Purdy. Understand why you would do that. So now that means you hate Trey Lance. Neither are true, but because you have an opinion, you have to have an opinion, and you are willing to back up that opinion and stick with that opinion, it means you hate the other guy. So I understand what you're going through. It's frustrating, but I'm getting it from the opposite side. So it is what it is, man. We just got to let it go. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I will say this. I mean, the one pet peeve that I have with I'll say old Niner media. Okay.
Right.
Is this, I have no real opinion. I'll wait to see what the team does, and then I will align my opinion with their opinion
Right.
so that either they like me more or I'm at least in lockstep with the organization. I don't respect that. I have no respect for that. To me, I'd rather the greatest thing anybody ever says to me when I'm out and about is like, dude, I watch your show, or I used to, back when I was on the radio, I listen to your show. And then the greatest thing that anybody could ever say to me is, man, I don't always agree with you. That's like awesome, because that's the way I do my show. I don't I don't look for what do the most people think. Oh, the most people think Trey Lance is the guy. Okay, I'm going to align with the most people. So right now the most people will agree with me. I don't. I give you what I actually think because I'm used to scouting and putting my opinion on it. So I'm not afraid to take the road less traveled. I'm not afraid to go where other people don't want to go. And I'll be wrong, and I've been wrong, and I'll be wrong again. But that's I've never respected the person who's like, okay, the team's gonna do this, and that's what we got last year on Sudfeld.
Yep.
People just stopped using their brain and stopped using their eyes, and they were reading the notes before they went on the field, and the notes said, oh, they've got 3 million tied up in Sudfeld, so they're keeping Sudfeld. So on July 18th, when I'm like, hey, they're going Purdy, I got people going, they're obviously keeping Sudfeld because they've got $3 million tied up in a.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I had to listen to that. I actually had a Niner
Yep.
beat writer bet me on the field on a day where Brock Purdy was getting so few reps that he had to pull Tay Martin aside and play catch on the sideline just to keep warm because he wasn't getting any reps. It was all going to Sudfeld. And as soon as that practice was over, a veteran beat writer walks up to me and saw my tweet earlier in the day saying that Brock Purdy was a lock to make the team. And he's like, he's a lock to make the team? He didn't get any reps today. I'm like, yeah. He's a lock to make the team. And he's like, a lock? He didn't play at all today. I'm like, yeah, he's a lock. I'll bet you $1 he doesn't make the team. I'm like, you're on. Well, I mean, obviously I'm $1 richer. But I
Yeah.
mean, these were people. Do those people not know football? No, they do know football, but they're reading the notes. I
Yep.
don't go by the notes. I go by this eye and this eye. And these are my
And
notes. And so
and that's
that's the way I
awesome.
do it, man. And
Yeah.
so I don't, and so I just don't respect the people who, and I know lots of people who do this, and they do it with the Giants, they do it with the Warriors, they do it with the Niners. What's the team going to do? What's the team's decision? I'll just align with the team. And the only time they look bad is when somehow there's like an 11th hour change of opinion. And then, wait a second, I didn't get the new talking memo. I thought we were all on Sudfeld. Oh, we're all on Purdy. I better change my talking point. I just don't respect that, man. I don't respect that. In that case, I just look at those people and I go, you don't know. And worse yet, you don't really have any courage of your convictions, even about something as basic and as simple as sports. And to me, that's not, I don't need groupthink. If I'm a Niner fan, I'd rather have all us content creators be independent thinkers. We all have our own ideas, and then let me decide who I agree with, and let's see how these things all shake out, and we'll find out who's got the best feel for it, and as opposed to, hey, I heard Lynch say he's going with Sudfeld, so I'm going to tell you that I think Sudfeld's better than Purdy. Why? Because I heard Lynch say he's going with Sudfeld. All right, great. Doesn't mean that Lynch is right, and doesn't mean you're going to be right because you agreed with Lynch. So I don't know. I mean, everybody's got a different way of doing it. That's the way I do it. And I believe in it, man. Let your eyes tell your brain what it sees. Don't read something and have your brain tell your eyes what it saw, like, hey, Sudfeld's really better. Well, is he? Why? Why do you say that? Oh, because they're giving him 3 million. But what about today at practice? Was he better than Purdy out there today at practice? I don't know. They look the same to me. I mean, I just don't have respect for people who align themselves with the groupthink approach to try to, I don't know. I'm not even sure what the game plan would be there. What? So you can have the same opinion as everybody else?
I think. I by the way, super chats. I'll get to all you guys. I see them stacking up. I'll get to you. I know there's a bevy of them, so we'll get through them here in a second. But this is a good conversation, and this is why I like doing shows with you, Larry, because I feel like every time we've done a show, we've gone down a path that wasn't on the docket, right? But we end up having real conversation. And I'm not able to do that with everybody, by the way, and this isn't like to take away from other content creators, but sometimes you just jive with people and you're able to have a real conversation about what's happening here. And so like let's pull back the curtain for a second and like what it's like to be on this side of things. I think having an opinion is really, really hard on the surface because you're going to be met with a lot of pushback, especially if that opinion is strong and especially if there's a lot of people that disagree with it. It's really hard to do that. But I think whether you are right or wrong, if you believe it and you can talk about it and articulate it, you win in the end. And the reason for that is because people prefer you to stand on something. If you stand on nothing and you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. Nobody gets any benefit from us sitting up here and being like, well, Larry, what do you think of the owners' meetings? Well, John and Lynch, I mean, John Lynch and Shanahan and York, they're aligned and I'm aligned and we're all aligned and everything was great. Yeah, me too. All right, thanks, guys. See you later. That's boring. Nobody wants to hear that crap. So you and I have a difference of opinion on this quarterback thing. And I think it's great. I think it's great because I think you can articulate why you have your opinion. I can articulate why I have my opinion. And whoever wants to align with whoever can do that. But people watch me. The reason that people watch you is because you have an opinion. And a lot of people right now are probably agreeing with your Purdy opinion. So people are tuning into Larry specifically because he is backing their opinion and he's doing it in a very articulate way. And so they're like, yeah, Larry, you get him. You know what you're talking about. And then I got people that watch me and they're like, well, I think Lance should be the starter. You know what? I'm going to watch Jesse because he has an opinion that Lance should be the starter and he can articulate it. And I'm like, yeah, these guys that want Purdy don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to watch Jesse. It's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that we're haters of the other guy. That's not necessarily what it means either.
No. I mean, first of all, different. I mean, it's sports talk and it's difference of opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not, I used to sign off on my radio show, Jesse, with, all right, Larry Krueger, often wrong, seldom in doubt. Have a great night, everybody. And then I would take off right on that line.
Yeah.
And I loved it. A buddy of mine gave it to me when I first started. He goes, go with this as your close, man. You'll love it. And I did love it because it kind of, I like to do a show where I give opinions. Like, here's my opinion all day. It's a 3-hour show. Here's 3 hours of opinions. And I don't do a lot of, well, I kind of think this. I go strong, and I'm like like a lawyer. I'm like, here's the way it is, and here's why I think it. A, B, C, D, E, F. And I back up my opinions. But it doesn't mean I'm always right.
Right.
I mean, and I've been wrong, and so sometimes you got to let people know that, hey, even though I'm absolutely coming across like I'm, dead sure about everything I'm saying.
Right.
Before I get out of here, folks, let me just tell you, I'm often wrong, but I'm seldom in doubt. In other words, I'm bringing the energy and I'm bringing in an opinion, but I'm not convinced. I'm not sold that everything that I'm telling you is going to be the right opinion, but it's my opinion,
Right.
So, and that's really all it is. But my only thing on the Purdy Lance thing is I don't understand people. Like, if you're a Niner content creator, in my mind, now not everybody is this way because everybody's coming at it from a different perspective. But in my mind, you're probably a Niner fan, or at least a Niner. You're interested in the franchise, and if you're really interested in the franchise, you want the team to win. And then, like, when we're talking about these quarterbacks, to me, the one thing that is unspoken is that what we're really talking about is how to win. So once you have a quarterback in there that's doing nothing but win, I don't understand people who then suddenly, I mean, they were Niner quarterbacks not named Jimmy Garoppolo under Shanahan before Purdy were 9-29. They lost a ton. They were nowhere near 500. Now you've got Brock Purdy. He's never lost. And it's like, yeah, but I don't think it's good enough. You haven't lost. You're undefeated. I know, but I don't think he can do it when it matters. They're scoring 33 points a game. You know what I mean? I don't understand wanting something when the point is to win and you're winning. Now, imagine how much pushback there would be on Brock Purdy as a quarterback if he was like, I don't know, 4-4 instead of 8-0. But he was 8-0. And there maybe would be more pushback if they scored like 15 a game, but they didn't. They scored 33 a game. So I don't understand we're winning. He's young. The players swear by him. He's obviously, doing a lot of things right because we haven't seen rookie quarterbacks do this. But you know what? It's not really enough for me. I don't just want to win. I want to win with this quarterback, with this particular quarterback. And I don't understand that. And I don't understand that thinking. And I don't understand those people. So I understand why anybody would like any quarterback. There's certain traits you like or whatever. But if a guy's having success to the level that Brock Purdy's having success, where they've not lost and they're scoring, the most points they've scored in years, I don't get it. I do not get it because my agenda is winning games and scoring points. That's what I want out of my quarterback. I want him to produce an offense that has points and to win games. And Brock Purdy's doing both those things. And there's still a lot of people who are like, it ain't enough, man. I need to win with Trey Lance. Well, what if you wind up going down the Trey Lance road and it doesn't, how long are you going to give it? You giving it a week? You giving it a month? You giving it a season? You giving it 2? You giving it 3? At what point will if Trey is not winning or the Niners are not winning with Trey, would you say, you know what? Maybe we should go back to Brock Purdy. I mean, I just think it's really, really, really hard to win in the NFL. And it's really hard to find a quarterback. And they have found one on a rookie deal, and they are winning games. And to me, I'm not the kind of person that would say, let's all just be happy. But I don't get it. I don't get we got to do it with Trey. No. How about this? We got to do it. And then let's worry about with who afterwards. I don't care who we win with, just that we win. But I can clearly see that there's lots of people in there in the Niner creation world that do not have that perspective. They need to win with the quarterback that they need to win with. And I don't understand that agenda. I don't understand any agenda outside of winning in pro sports.
So I've always said that as a fan, I have one job, right? If I'm a fan of a team, I have one job, Larry. That job is to root for the product on the field come game day, right? When the game's not being played, I can have all the opinions in the world. I can disagree with this, I can disagree with that, whatever. But once that game is being played, I've got to root for those players that are playing because they're wearing the uniform that I root for, right? So for years, I didn't think Jimmy Garoppolo was the guy. Now, he won too. I didn't think he was the guy. Got a lot of crap for, you're not a real fan, you're not that. Okay, I'm not a real fan. But my only job is to actually root on Sunday for the team that's playing. So guess what? When Jimmy Garoppolo played, even though he wasn't my choice, dude, I hung on the edge of my seat, game in and game out, die hard, rooting for this team. And when they lost, it ruined my weeks. Like up until Wednesday or Thursday, I was so frustrated and irritated and all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my job as a fan. So, but now that I'm on this side of things, I have a job to give it to you the way that I think. And so when those games are being played on Sunday, I root for Brock Purdy hard, right? I liked Brock Purdy coming out of there. And just as a person, like let's just throw the football stuff out of it. Brock Purdy and I have a lot of similarities when it comes down to our choice in the way that we like to live our life from a religious aspect. Okay. And so I have a lot of admiration for Brock Purdy and his willingness to step outside the box, represent his Lord and Savior, which is, I agree with. That's my Lord and Savior too. So, like, just on a personal level, I really resonate with Brock Purdy. However, I have a difference of opinion where, listen, I think Brock, and I've made a video on my channel, Mr. Right versus Mr. Right Now. I think Brock could be Mr. Right Now, meaning they will probably win more games with Brock Purdy this year than any other quarterback. But I don't necessarily think they win the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. I don't think he will be enough. I don't know that Trey Lance will be enough either, by the way. He could be a complete dud. But I think he has the tool set to potentially be enough. So week 1 Trey Lance versus week 18 Trey Lance, two different guys in my mind, in the way that I envision Trey Lance developing potentially. So I want to see that potential before I'm willing to just throw it all away and say, you know what, bust, get out of here. Because I don't believe that Brock Purdy's skill set, even with this bevy of weapons, is enough. It's enough to win regular season games. It might be enough to get you to a Super Bowl in a week NFC. But gosh damn it, if they have to play Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, we're dead in the water. That's the way that I see it, right? But I still root for Brock Purdy every single Sunday. When that game's being played, man, there's nobody else to root for. He's the starter. So of course I'm rooting for him. That's my job as a fan. But when I get on here, my job is to have an opinion. And I have an opinion that does differ, but that is the reasoning why it differs.
I hear you, but I mean, like, do you think Jalen Hurts has enough skills to win a Super Bowl? Because to me, Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts are the same damn guy. It's the same guy.
You
They're
think?
really, yeah, they're the same guy. They're both on the smaller side. They both are way more elusive than you think. Their deep ball kind of hangs. They're not, they're better arm guys. They're bigger statured players. But they win. And the guys in the room really believe in them. And they're athletic and they're really, both these guys are way more than what they appear to be athletically. Like Jalen Hurts has got a real something to him. He's not just he's more he plays bigger. He runs stronger because of how much power he has in his legs from lifting. Brock Purdy's
He's also a lot thicker than Brock Purdy, I think. Like those two don't look like they have the same frame to me. I get what the weight says if I go on Wikipedia,
yeah.
but those dudes are not built the same.
Well, Brock Purdy, though, I'll say they call him Mini Bosa for his quads and legs. He carries a lot more weight in his lower half than he appears. But I hear what you're saying. But I mean, they're both guys that you can find taller guys. You can find bigger arms. And they're both the kind of guy that at first blush you would kind of sign off and be like, I didn't think much of Hurts initially, but the more he played, the more I realized the guy's a player. I didn't think a lot of Brock initially, but the more I watch him, the more I think the guy's a player. So all I'm saying is, yeah, I mean, Brock, I just don't know that the guy with the best arm wins the Super Bowl, or the guy who can throw it the longest, or the guy who can lift the most, or the guy who had the best 40. Like, have you noticed that, like, when they talk quarterbacks, they don't sit there and go, this guy had the best 40 time. This guy had the best, because we all know at this juncture, it's about so much more than your 40 time. So nobody even really quotes it. Even the Wonderlic, when people used to quote that, people know that that's just a test, and it's an indication of intellect, but it's by far, it's not the end all be all. So people note it and they move on. I just think that with these guys that don't quite fit the boxes of what the prototype is supposed to be in the NFL, we discount them. And the reality is that an old NFL scout, Jesse, told me, he said, you know what? He's like, the biggest trait for great quarterbacks is intellect. He's
I
like
agree.
all of the best ones are super freaking smart. And that's what I think you're going to find with Purdy and Hurts. And what really separates them is how smart they are.
I
And,
agree.
and then you mix in, there's also, it's a combination, Jesse, of smarts, but it's also this like insane competitive thing that Brady has, that Montana had, that Breeze had, that I think that I'm, like I did the first interview with Brock, and buddy of mine who was filming it said, "Wow, what'd you think?" And I'm like, dude, I love him that much more now because you can see the simmering competitor in him when you do the interview. He's like, he's not just a competitive guy, he's like simmering. He's like, I need to win. And that's a Jordan, Jeter, Brady, that's a Larry Bird. That's a very weird, that's a Draymond Green trait. There's not everybody yearns and burns to win. Some guys are there for the check. Some guys are there just because they're super athletic. You'd love them all to want to win and be passionate about it, but they're not like that all the time. Brock is like that. And I think the intellect and that desire makes up for a lot of the shortcomings. And at some point, I agree with you. You look at the skill set, and I look at the skill set too, but it really comes down to what we used to look for as scouts, which is find me the essence of the football player, and then we'll know who we're talking about. And that's really, where I think people missed on Purdy is that the essence of that kid is that, and you mentioned your faith. He's very grounded with a lot of faith, a lot of maturity. He's kind of an old soul. He's very mature, but he's an insane competitor. So, and I think that's the same thing with Hurts. Really smart, insanely competitive. And when those traits sometimes come in 6 feet, sometimes it comes in 6'5". In this case, it comes in 6'1", 227 or whatever he is. I understand people wanting, the higher end quarterback that can compete with Mahomes and Allen and the best, but man, I got to see some failure before I'm going to go off of Brock Purdy. I need to see him literally fail, lose games, throw picks, fail, before I'm going to sit there and go, no, I need to, yeah, they're winning. And yeah, but I need the other guy because I sense that the other guy's upside's greater.
I
I'm all
think
about upside. I'm all about upside, but to me, don't ignore the bird in hand for a little bit better upside. That's just my feeling on it. I'm not saying I'm right.
no, that's totally fair. And again, that's why, like, if somebody can articulate it, I don't I don't mind a difference of opinion, right? Like where I kind of check out on conversations is like when you start like throwing out the clown emoji and you don't really have anything to add to a conversation, you just want to talk a little trash. Like, okay, I don't mind talking trash and banter back and forth, but like give me an intelligent conversation. That's what you and I are having right now. Okay. That's what I dig. Difference of opinion is fine. I think when I look at Trey Lance and when he was being drafted, the reason I fell in love with Trey Lance, the athletic big arm stuff was like 5 and 6 on the list. It was all the mental stuff that I loved about him. And I believe that's why the 49ers initially kind of fell in love with him as well. And that's what, when the media talked about him, nothing but like amazing things to say. Oh man, he's a very smart kid. You get in a room with him, you get him on a board, man, he really breaks down the game. He knows what he's talking about. Like Sam Darnold to me is almost everything that Trey Lance is physically, but he doesn't have it up here. That's why I don't believe in Sam Darnold. That's my opinion of Sam Darnold. So if I was comparing just this athletic marvel that I didn't think had it up here to Brock Purdy, that would be one thing. But I think Trey Lance not only has the physical tools that we definitely see, but I think he has all the mental makeup to be really good. He just needs the time to put it together, right? And so the Wonderlic is one thing, but that new S2 cognition test is a real thing right now. They've basically stated, hey, there is not a single quarterback in this league since we've been doing this test that has been elite and not tested elite on this test. Well, both Brock Purdy and Trey Lance were in the elite range on the test. They were both in the elite range. So we're not talking about really smart quarterback who's maybe not as gifted physically, but does have some athleticism that's sneaky versus dumb quarterback who has all the physical traits. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about smart quarterback, more physical traits than the other quarterback. Like that's the comparison that we have right now. We're not comparing Sam Darnold to Purdy. We're comparing a smart kid with the physical traits to Brock Purdy. That's the difference.
I look at it like you're comparing somebody with a master's degree or a bachelor's degree from Sac State to somebody who's got a master's degree. They're just they're at different stages. Brock Purdy probably could be an offensive coordinator. If his elbow was literally shredded and he can't come back, he's probably an offensive coordinator candidate in a year. You know what I mean? If his career's over because of this elbow injury, he's that kind of because he played 4 years and he had success and he stepped in and he clearly has that part down. Trey's on the totally other end of the spectrum. He's barely at all played. And he's really a prospect that was taken on traits, and he won people over with, the interviews and the traits. But it's like Shanahan kind of challenged himself with, can you bring this young quarterback along? We know you can call plays, Kyle. We know you have an offense that works, but you got a raw quarterback from the FCS level who needs tutelage and development, and he needs to be brought along in your system. Do you have the ability to bring him along? And to this point, I'm starting to think that not only does he may not have the ability to bring him along, I don't know that he has the interest in wanting to spend the time to bring him along. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my read on it. I mean, there's limits to how much time Trey can spend in the building. Trey's got to work with, Quincy Avery's and different guys like that outside the building to develop in the offseason because of the way the rules are structured. But I don't know. I don't get the sense that Shanahan's like in a real rush to teach Trey all these nuances and develop him. I see a guy who really thinks he's a very good play caller and was looking for somebody to operate his offense. And he's found it in Brock Purdy. And I think that, all things being equal, he's going to stay with Brock Purdy. And then that makes me think, well, what's Trey's future? Because if I'm Trey, I don't want to sit here for 3 years and 3 more years and, ride into the free agency as a guy who's never played. I want to get out there on the field, and I don't know if it's going to happen here or not. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen here. And if Brock's healthy, it is almost for sure not going to happen right away here. So then what do you do? What do you do with Trey? And I think he has a right to have a say in his career, and he has a right to play, or at least try to play. So I don't know what the solution is, Jesse, but I think that they were really most wed not to Trey, but to the idea of the rookie quarterback and building a team around a quarterback on a rookie deal. And they love the idea of Trey, but I don't know that they're willing to carry it through and follow through and develop them. And so now here we have this quarterback that has a lot of great traits and needs to be developed, but are they going to spend the time to develop him? Are they going to give him the field time so he can get better? And if they're not going to, then what do you do? Do you sit with him, or do you try to move him for other assets? And I think my guess is that they're going to do the latter. They're going to move him for other assets. But I'm not rooting for it, because I really do think on the back end they could look very, very bad on this. I think did you see what James Wiseman did tonight for the Pistons?
No,
I mean, he got off to a hot start. He had in the first 5 minutes of the game, he had 6 points and 4 rebounds. Probably had another double-double. And what did the Warriors get for him? They got GP2, a defensive 2 guard, who, really only plays half the floor. And you know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
Was that going to be a good trade? I don't know that it's going to be a good trade long term. He had 14 and 11 tonight. James Wiseman, 14 and 11. And the Pistons lost by 1. But another double-double, for a young big man who the Warriors traded far too soon for far too little. I just don't want to I want to see the Niners win a Super Bowl. That's my agenda. But I also don't want to see them trade Trey Lance too soon and for too little. So, do I want to see them trade him? Tell me what's coming back. If you
Yeah.
told me it's a 3rd and a 5th round pick, no, I don't want to trade him. But if you told me it's a late 1st round pick or an early 2nd round pick and a player, and I like that player, then I think I would do it.
All right, let me get to these super chats. Tyler says, and thank you guys for being patient. I didn't want to break the conversation. And also
The super
I
chats
get
are
the
always
sense,
hard to know when to go to them, right?
right,
I
it
put
is.
them at one
It is.
time.
But you know what? Like that conversation of Purdy and Lance, I know that there are people that watch you, and I know that there are people that watch me that have wanted that conversation to happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
understand where each other are coming from and why we would have a difference of opinion, because we clearly have a difference of opinion. And I think that people know that, and they've been waiting for that conversation to happen. So I'm glad that we had it. Tyler says, Larry, may I ask you a question? To you, what do you think the direction of this franchise is? Why I feel like we have 3 people who have 3 separate ideas for the direction of the quarterback position. So he basically says Lynch, Shanahan, and York seem to have difference of opinions. What do you think the direction of this franchise is?
I don't think they have differences of opinions. I hear the same thing. I hear them building up Trey Lance, the person, and everybody's very confident in the macro view of his career. And everybody is totally non-committal about the micro view of his immediate future. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
Trey Lance, is he going to be good long term? It's like I almost feel like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and Jed York are all saying, "Yeah, we really believe in this guy long term. Really believe in him long term." And I do too. And so I understand why they would say that, because I believe in this kid long term. But they consistently either not saying complimentary things about him in the short term, or Lynch made it seem like playing him at all was going to be a challenge in the short term. And then you've got Darnold there in the short term. So I think that the message is very consistent from those 3 guys. I don't see a differing message. I see a very consistent message. We love Trey. We know he's going to be good long term. After spending a year with him, we feel better about him than we even did before. And he needs to play, and Brock's our number 1 guy, and we may be going with 2 quarterbacks. And when you put all those things you cook all those things in one pot, you realize what they're really saying is they're preparing us for, they're going with Brock. Darnold's going to be his backup. They're going to draft a 3rd string guy. They're going to trade Trey Lance, and they're going to tell us that they didn't stop believing in Trey Lance, that they didn't have a place to play him, and they're doing this trade for their own best interest and Trey's. And I think they're very consistent. I think John kind of said that. I think Shanahan kind of said that. And I think today, Jed kind of said the same thing. We really believe in Trey long term. But what? But what about short term? What about now? And I think they're wed to going with Brock Purdy short term if he's healthy.
Yeah, I don't know if they necessarily disagree on that front. One thing that I will say that I feel like there is a slight disagreement on is the philosophy of how to build a team. Jed York had a comment that really, really caught my eye, and he was asked about, I forget what he was asked about, but he went down a whole different weird path with it. But throughout his answer, he said, well, in fact, here, I'll just pull up the exact quote. I don't want to.
Yeah.
The exact quote was, talking about the quarterback position, that is the most important position in the league. You aren't winning a championship unless you have someone who is who is a very good quarterback, if not an extremely great quarterback. So he says that's his philosophy of how to build a team, is what I take from that. Hey, you start at the quarterback position. However, Shanahan and Lynch have built this team not through the quarterback position at all, in my opinion. They've worked all around the quarterback position. They're like, you know what? We just need a rookie who's competent, that will listen to what I tell him to do. We'll surround him with all the best talent in the world, and that's how we're going to get it done. But the owner is saying something different. I do agree that they seem to be lockstep as far as, hey, what do they think of Purdy and Lance, at least in this moment? But the philosophy of how you build a team, to me, it sounds like York has a different philosophy than what Shanahan and Lynch have done with the quarterback position.
Well, the only thing you were assuming that York doesn't feel that way about Purdy. He may be referring to Purdy right there. He
Yeah,
may
maybe.
feel that Purdy's that special player. I mean, look at it this way. They've kind of reported, like, what was the report this week from Ian Rappaport? It's like the 49ers believe that, like, Brock Purdy's like a guy, like the guy, like special, real special. So, and then the other weird one was, why is Ian Rappaport suggesting that, this all that we really got this week was that we really believe that Brock's our number one guy if he's healthy, and that Sam Darnold and Trey Lance will split reps. That was stated. And then literally, a couple hours later, here's Ian Rappaport saying that if Trey Lance continues on this current trajectory, Sam Darnold will be your week one starter. What does that mean, Jesse? What is
Injury? I don't know. I have no
Trey?
idea.
What is Trey Lance's current trajectory? Somebody whispered something to Ian Rappaport
John Lynch.
that Trey Lance is not on a trajectory to get the starting job. Somebody said that to Ian Rappaport. He didn't make that up. He said it. He said, expect Sam Darnold to be the week one starter if Trey Lance continues on his current trajectory. I mean, somebody said something to Ian Rappaport. I just, to me, that was totally baffling. When I heard him say that, I was like, first of all, if you told me Sam Darnold is battling with Trey Lance this summer, and they're going to enter the competition on a literally equal playing field, nobody's going to have the advantage. Literally 50-50 split. Who's going to win that competition? Trey Lance. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. Why is Ian Rappaport saying that Sam Darnold, who's got some of the worst statistics in the NFL, is going to beat out Trey Lance? Or he made it seem like he's going to beat out Trey Lance if Trey stays on his quote unquote current trajectory. That came from somebody.
I think it came from John Lynch, personally. Britain.
Don't you think that? That's pretty revealing.
It's weird. It's a weird thing to say. It's a
weird thing to say.
But again, that's tanking Trey Lance's trade. You know what I mean? Like, they're not doing anything to help his trade value right now. So if the goal is to trade him, you guys are horrible at trying to like snow somebody and like one up somebody.
Well, it's like
this is a terrible game to play.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to sell us on the upside of Sam Darnold while not doing any damage to Trey's value. The one thing about this that's going to be really interesting is that there are other people in the NFL in a number of different spots that used to be here that have their own opinions about Trey Lance.
Yep.
Robert Saleh, I'm sure, has his own opinions about Trey Lance. Rand Carthon has his own opinions about Trey Lance. So is there some person in the NFL that isn't with the Niners, that is absolutely a Trey Lance fan? I think we're going to find out. I think we're going to find out in a few weeks.
Yeah, we definitely could. Britton says, what would Trey have to achieve in a month that would prove he is worth it to Kyle and Lynch? Keep up the great streams, fellas. I don't think Trey, I don't, and I said this pretty much all off season. I don't think that there's anything that Trey can do without playing games to prove that. The only path I
think he means that once the season started, if he started in September,
okay,
what kind of September would he have to have?
Yeah, I mean, he would have to be the reason that they're winning games.
I think it's more about points than wins. I mean, I even know obviously wins mean everything, but if this offense is producing, 30 points a game and he's getting the ball to all these big time weapons, I don't think he's coming out. I mean, that's the goal of offensive football. Score 30 to 35 points and get the ball to all of your weapons. If he's doing that, I think he's in there.
Yeah, I also hope that my offensive coaches on this can separate what is happening to your quarterback and what he's contributing and where things could be going wrong versus is the team winning or losing or scoring a bunch of points? Like why are they scoring a bunch of points? Why are they not? Why are they winning? Why are they not? You have to be able to separate that down to the position. And if they think, hey, Trey is balling out of his mind, there's nothing more he can do, but special teams this, Debo fumbled that, whatever it is, I would hope that they can separate why things are happening. And if Trey is playing amazing, that listen, we're sticking with Trey. But I think anything short of playing top level football, regardless of winning, scoring, whatever, that's his opportunity, in my opinion. Jonathan comes in twice and says, what happens if the Niners trade Trey and he turns out to be Josh Allen 2.0 and Purdy has hit his ceiling? Trey plays against the Niners and basically wins big. Should Kyle and John be fired after that? All right, that's a hypothetical. Let's go down that road. What do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, they've been in 3 of the last 4 NFC championship games. They're positioned right now to really dominate the NFC for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. I don't see the big time team that's going to challenge them in the conference. So I don't think they should be fired now. But at the same time, that's a disaster. And that's why that's why people are like, "Oh, you want to trade Trey?" No, I'm predicting they're going to trade Trey, and it scares the hell out of me to trade Trey because I do think he is smart, and I do think football's important to him, and everything else is just about reps. It's like if you're not smart or football's not important to you, you may not get there. But if you are smart and football is important to you, and you're as athletic as Trey Lance, it's just about a matter of time, just a matter of reps. When he gets them, he's going to develop. So I know the kid's smart and I know football's important to him. So I'm worried about trading him for anything less than an awesome return. But if I get an awesome return, if I could get a pick that I could turn into Michael Mayer, or if I could get a pick that I could turn into a number 1 corner, or if I could get a pick that I could turn into a number 1 edge rusher, or somebody who could really be a difference maker and help me get to the top of the mountain, I'm willing to do that. But I'm not willing to do it for like a 3rd round pick and a conditional 4th, and we'll just chalk it up to a loss. In that situation, John and Kyle are going to get criticism and they deserve it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, you're going to get a ton of criticism. I think that makes it tough to trade Trey Lance because I'm sure that that's in the back of their mind too. Like, hey, if they really do truly believe like long term he could be a guy, we just don't have the time to give him time because we do believe in Purdy, then that can be a scary thing, especially because you did give up so much for him. And even though you made it right on the back end by getting Purdy with the last pick in the draft and seeing something that maybe nobody else saw, those two are forever going to be compared. And if for some reason Trey Lance ends up better, regardless of how good Purdy is, then it doesn't look good. So I think that there's some of that. I think that's a fair thing to worry about potentially.
I think it's
you never know.
In some ways it's more on Kyle because Kyle will be if Kyle could not develop Trey, but Trey goes somewhere else and develops, I think it shows bad on Kyle.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Poopy Pants says every time with that name. I don't think any of Larry's QB takes have ever been wrong. I don't think any of Jesse's have ever been right. I hope you're taking notes. Well, Poopy Pants, if you want to know, I can show you all the receipts. I can show you 3 games into Justin Herbert's sophomore year where I said he would be an elite NFL quarterback. I can
You were on
play
Purdy
you
before I was on Purdy.
I can play you the podcast before the Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield draft where I said Josh Allen would be elite. I can show you the receipts where I liked Brock Purdy in 2021. I mean, I can replay the receipts where I said that Zach Wilson was going to be a bust. So I mean, I'm not always right. I'm definitely not always right. But to say I'm never right, come on, man.
Hey, by the
That's just
way,
not doing your research.
yeah, come on, Jesse's right a ton. I will say this: we should have a topic sometime about this. We could do a whole show on this. The take that you currently have that everybody would say you're wrong, but you still believe you're right. And in
I
my
like it.
case, I like Zach Wilson to bounce back and have a good NFL career.
I
And
like it.
a lot of people think he's terrible. I've heard people have ripped him, especially because he plays for the Jets in New York, and there's so many people there. There's so many people that have just made it official. Zach Wilson sucks, and Zach Wilson will suck. And I'm more along the lines that Sam Darnold sucks than Zach Wilson sucks. I'd much rather have Zach Wilson than Sam Darnold, but there's Niner fans that are going to convince themselves that Darnold's a player, and I guarantee you, the consensus is that Larry's high because he thinks Zach Wilson has got game. You're wrong, and it's like, you know what? I'm wrong today, but I'm not going to be wrong forever. I think so. We'll
You
see.
you know
We'll see.
what's funny about Zach Wilson? So I said that he was the quarterback most likely to bust coming into the draft. I said that he was a professional dunker, meaning I felt like he could do all the wow things, but when it comes to the basics of playing actual basketball, he can't dribble. And so that's what I said he was. However, I've also said that I believe all players deserve 3 years before you know or have an opinion on them, a full concrete opinion. And even then, sometimes somebody will surprise you, maybe like a Geno Smith kind of coming out of nowhere type thing, right? But he still hasn't had that third year to start. So I believe, even though I thought he would bust coming into the league, even though he's shown nothing but to be a bust to this point,
Yeah.
that he does deserve one more year before we're fully saying, hey, this kid is a bust. That's the way that I view, especially the quarterback position, is you need 3 years of mostly start time before I know one way or another truly what you are.
The problem I think he's having is that at BYU, you could park a Suburban between him and the rush. There was so much
Yeah.
room. And in the NFL, there is never that situation. You're always making plays in a muddied pocket. And that's like what Purdy does really, really well. Zach Wilson can't do it all right now. But Zach Wilson also has the arm talent that Purdy would only dream of. And I just think that if you put Wilson in a good situation with big time weapons like the Niners have, you would start to see, and he got used to the NFL tempo, the NFL pocket, being able to make plays with guys flying around him. Some guys can never get used to it, Jesse. I mean, they're just never used to all the action around them. It bothers them, and they never adjust. I think this kid's smart and will adjust. He hasn't adjusted yet, and I understand why everybody's ripping him. I do. I totally get it. I see this. I see the games. I've seen the stats. I've seen him play poorly, but there's way more there. I'll just say that. And I really believe he's going to get there. And when he does, remember I said it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get over a team wearing Mike White t-shirts.
Right? No, he blew that. He thought he thought he was smarter than New York. It's like
Yeah.
no, you should have owned that failure, and instead you push back on it, and now
Mhm.
it's your legacy.
Yeah, I think if he got in the right situation, that the talent is certainly there. I've never thought he lacked talent. There were other things about Zach that I didn't like, and maybe he can turn it around. Like I said, I do believe he needs a third year before I would be fully out on Zach Wilson. But so far, I've been right on that one for sure. But it
Steve
doesn't mean I'm
Young,
going to be right long term.
Steve Young, before the draft, I did a number of interviews with Steve that year. When Zach came out and Trey came out, of course, the famous draft. Um, Steve made it seem like Kyle Shanahan liked Zach Wilson, and I don't, I obviously they could never get him because he went one pick ahead. But it's going to be really, to me, it's going to be really interesting, not just to see what happens with Trey, but to see what happens with Zach Wilson. Because in a lot of ways, I think both guys need a change of scenery. I think Zach Wilson needs a change of scenery because he lost the locker room and the media market, and people want him out, and he's persona non grata. But I think Trey may need to be moved as well because with Brock here, he needs to play like right now, like whatever team he goes to, he needs to play next year. He can't sit and watch anymore. So, for that reason, I think Trey needs a change of scenery. And for that other reason, I think Zach needs a change of scenery. I think they both are in that category of they would do better elsewhere.
Yeah, but then the flip side is Zach really does look up to Aaron Rodgers, and if he's coming to town, that might be enough for him to like, hey, I can learn something by sitting behind this guy
He would.
who I really truly look up to, and all. Who knows? There was like a fruit fly or something flying around, so I looked like an idiot trying to grab it on camera. Anyways, 2.0 says, I honestly think Trey's post about Carthon clearly insinuating he wants out, rubbed people the wrong way. Shanahan has an ego. Think he's done with him for now, and they are going to give him his wish. I don't think that's what that was saying at all, but maybe.
Who knows? Who knows on that? But it's not hard to picture that in a lot of ways, Tennessee, Rand Carthon is the guy, the perfect guy for Trey to go to. He's in the AFC, not in the NFC.
Yeah.
He's in a market where there's been good stability in that organization, despite the fact they just ran out the GM who had a good record. But now Rand's there, and Rand's just starting his program, and he needs some guys that are loyal to him. And they don't have a quarterback of the future, and it's a perfect spot for Trey. I'm not saying that he's going to the Titans, but I'll say this: if I were the Titans, I would absolutely want Trey.
There's one team that I would fear him going to if I was Shanahan and Lynch.
Who's that?
Indianapolis Colts.
And there's talk that they had a really high grade on him, coming out.
And now they've got Shane Steichen, who worked with Jalen Hurts for the last few years. So that would be a fear of mine. Hey, they're at the 4 pick. They don't get, any of the top 3 quarterbacks. They're like, we're not taking Will Levis, but we'll give you a second for Trey Lance. Okay. That would scare the piss out of me if I was Shanahan and Lynch. Yeah. Official B&A Music says, are we a win now team with Samuel R. Darnold as a serious option? If he touches the field, we are likely going nowhere. It's Dame time, Jesse. There he goes. He's poking fun at my Blazers, but basically saying like, listen, we're not going anywhere if Sam Darnold is a serious option. We're not going anywhere if Sam Darnold's a serious option long term. They can overcome a few games of Sam Darnold, but long term, I agree with you.
If somehow if Sam Darnold winds up playing good football for the Niners, man, I mean, one, it will be a great thing for the Niners because, they will have uncovered talent where other teams failed. But two, I mean, Shanahan, to me, that will just be an amazing turnaround because Darnold just looked really bad in my mind. I don't think he sees it. I don't think he's accurate. I don't think he's that smart. I don't think he's that intriguing of a prospect in any regard. It's shocking to me that Shanahan speaks so highly of him.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about the quarterback position, and I had this conversation when Baker got traded after he basically ran his way out of Cleveland. Why would anybody continue to trade for these guys? Because everybody thinks they're the smartest guy in the room. Everybody looks at them and says, okay, they have all these traits, checks all these boxes. I am a better coach than that guy. I can fix him. That's it's egos. It's a bunch of egos that think they're better than the last guy.
Yeah.
And so they're willing to take a chance on him. And I know that that's the way that Shanahan views it. He's like, I liked him coming out of college. Hell, we were willing to give up a first-round pick for him. We just didn't get him when we offered it to the Jets. And then he went to the Panthers. They were a bunch of idiots over there. I'm smarter than all of them. I can fix Sam Darnold. That's the way that these guys think. I really believe that.
And the Niners
Twisted
have
Clown.
weapons. Niners have weapons.
They
So I
do.
mean,
They do.
they
And I think both can be true. By the way, I do. I think that he can play his best football of his career, but that doesn't make him a good quarterback.
and who knows? Maybe Darnold recruited the Niners more than the Niners recruited Darnold.
That's true. That's also true. Twisted Clown says, what players could have been drafted instead of Trey Lance? Oh, I mean, we could go down that list forever. There's a lot.
Micah
I mean, we could do that
Parsons,
with every draft and a lot of
right?
players.
Wasn't Jamar Chase? Didn't Jamar Kyle Pitts, right? Or
Yeah.
am I confusing my drafts?
No, Pitts for sure. Yeah. Chase too. Yeah, I think Chase as well. No. That was the
Am I losing my draft here? Are we talking about what draft are we talking about? 2021, right?
yeah.
Let me
What
just type
Chase
it in.
was in that one, yeah? Yeah, Chase was in that one. Chase was in that one. So
Okay,
was
I have it here. I have it right here.
Devontae
It's
Smith.
it went Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Lance. So
Okay.
the next two picks were Kyle Pitts,
Yep.
Jamar Chase, Jalen
Okay.
Waddle, Penei Sewell,
Waddle.
J.C. Horn, Patrick
Yep.
Surtain, Devontae Smith, Justin Fields,
Parsons.
Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater. I mean, basically,
A
for the
lot of
next
really
yeah,
good players.
a lot of good players there. There's a lot of good players there.
A lot of
I mean,
really good players.
Jamar Chase. I mean, to me, that's the best of them right there.
Yeah. Chase, but also, I mean, Parsons would be nice to have opposite of Bosa right about now.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I wouldn't mind having J.C. Horn. He's a true number one corner. They lack that right now.
Yeah, for sure. Fish and Chips says bringing in Darnold is no endorsement of Trey. Yeah, I don't disagree with you actually on that. Ryan says, Larry, I'll buy you lunch if Trey Lance isn't the week 1 starter. You buy if he is.
Deal.
Yeah, deal. There we go.
Deal.
I like it. We just made a bet on stream. I don't know if that might be against YouTube's terms and conditions. I'm not sure.
Let's not get Jesse demonetized.
Yeah, yeah.
Ryan, I'm not sure if we can make that arrangement.
The hat's the indicator. 2.0 says Larry equals GOAT. Trey stands don't like the truth. All right.
2.0.
Larry is the GOAT though. I agree with the first half. I don't think that this comment and going back to the poopy pants. This comment and going back to the poopy pants.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can say that they're right or wrong yet on any of these quarterbacks. It's way too early for that.
Right. I agree.
Hold on. See, we waited way too long for these. Jeez. Fish and Chip says, I loved both Joe and Steve. Didn't choose at all.
Wow. You're the only guy who didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you, man. That's good. That's really good. Are you choosing now is the question, Fish and Chips. Sounds like you are. Compton TJ says, how long have you been planting your flag in Trey? Pause. So before the draft, about a month before the draft, I said that he would be the pick. I thought he was the best pick. I had him as my number 2 quarterback in that draft behind Trevor Lawrence. So my order was Trevor Lawrence, Lance, of the guys that went in the first round, Trevor Lawrence, Lance, Fields, Wilson, even though I didn't like him and thought he would bust, but I liked Wilson's upside more than I ever would have liked Mac Jones. So that was my order of those guys.
I had them the way they went as far as Lawrence 1, Wilson 2, Lance 3. And then I had Fields 4 and Jones 5.
I know
I was not a Mac Jones guy. I was worried about Mac Jones.
Yeah, I noticed like I know that I had a conversation with Vish recently and he was like, we were talking about this draft class in the 2021 and if we combined them, what would your order be and would it change at all? Vish said no. He's like, just going back then, I'm obviously hindsight's 2020. He's like, but he was intrigued by Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson would still be his number 2 quarterback if you combine both these draft classes. I said that I would have Lance move from 2 to 3 just because I would have CJ Stroud evaluated a little bit above Lance, but it wouldn't change that much for me.
I'm not a fan of this year's class. I like Anthony Richardson, and I'm really intrigued by, to me, Anthony Richardson is super intriguing. The rest of the guys I can see real flaws in.
Second comment in a row that is clear. I should have said pause after I said planting my flag in Trey. You guys are too funny. Hold on, let me make sure I didn't miss any. GTC Real says sports don't build character, they reveal it.
That's
I
a
like
Damon
that.
Bruce line. That's a Damon Bruce line. That's when I said I sign off with often wrong, seldom in doubt. Damon signs off with sports don't build character, they reveal it.
That's good. I like them both.
Yeah.
I like them both. Those are both very good sign-offs. I enjoy them. This is the best 49er stream of the year, period. Hey, maybe it is meant to be. Maybe I'm meant to be the host and you're meant to be the guest, man. We got it. All right, hold on. Or I think we're almost there. We almost got it. We'll see. Gosh, I'm so far behind on comments. Official B&A Music says, I've been called Diet Eric before.
Eric Armstead.
Yeah. That's funny. Gammon says, why are fans acting like things have changed and we receive new gospel and yet literally nothing has changed? Trey still starts until Brock Purdy is healthy. Maybe.
Well, okay. Why are fans acting like things have changed? Because I think most 49er fans were thinking that Trey would be the absolute for sure starter and that Darnold would be the for sure number 3. But it doesn't really seem like that's the way they're thinking. What we got out of Kyle and John was that Brock is the clear 1 and that Darnold and Trey Lance will be given an opportunity to compete for what sounds like the backup job behind Brock. So that's why I think there's a lot of pushback, because I think there's a lot of Niner fans who are like, wait a second, you've been telling us for the last 2 or 3 years that Trey Lance is the future face of the franchise. I went and bought a jersey because of Trey Lance, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And now you sign one of the worst statistical quarterbacks in the league, and they're on an even playing field going into camp. I mean, what's going on? What's changed? What's up? So I think that's what, am I summing that up correctly? I mean, that's what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah, I think that's definitely changed. Now, Gammon, to your point, there's still a possibility that Trey starts until Purdy's healthy. And then in that case, hindsight would say nothing changed. But the way that they're talking has definitely changed. I agree with that. Austin says, I still see the win against the Raiders showed us so he's talking about Purdy, us, that he is there for the team when things aren't going great defensively. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that.
I mean, they should have won that game big, but that was a nice win to come from behind win. They were down. People forget they were down 10 in that game on the road in the second half. That was a nice little win.
Bobby, I think this is a good comment. That's why I pulled it up, even though it's not a super chat. He said, guys, you may not like it, but the team probably thinks exactly like Larry. And I think that's where the difference comes in, right? Like Larry said, hey, I wouldn't trade Trey Lance unless I got a lot for it. But I think the team's going to trade Trey Lance. Obviously, I've made my point clear in saying that I would play Trey Lance. But what do I think the team thinks? I think the team does agree with Larry. I think that's pretty obvious, actually. And I think that we saw that coming from a mile away. They just kind of reiterated it. Gammon says, those who think the league won't figure out a limited quarterback like Brock Purdy, who's
Sam
SD?
Darnold.
Oh, Sam Darnold or Jimmy G, are the same people who think that a carpet on a bathroom floor is a good idea. Trey is not a long-term answer, and the 49ers know this. What about a waterbed, Gammon? That's a good one, though. Bathroom floor and carpet is not a good idea.
Carpet in the kitchen, in the dining room, or in the bathroom is foul.
So gross. Like, what were we thinking back then? How is that even a real deal? And then the waterbeds, too? Those are so weird.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Water beds.
Miguel says, I don't see anything special about Purdy. He looks like a high level. Can I sum this up real quick? You know what this reminds me of? So this is like you and I going head to head in that the little competition thing that they were having that Stats put
Right.
together. I feel like early on the comments were 100% behind you and your opinion. And now I'm making a late push with these last super chats where I might be closing the gap where the chat might start to agree with me as much.
Give it
Miguel
time.
says,
Give it
I didn't
time.
see anything special about Purdy. He looks like a high level backup quarterback. He looks super average against the Cowboys with all the weapons that he had.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I thought Kyle Shanahan called a ridiculously conservative game against Dallas, which was very odd, but it was just very conservative. I mean, if you think about it, think about like the way he coached the first half against Dallas with Purdy, and then look at the way he coached or called the 49ers with Josh Johnson after Purdy was knocked out. Instead of, being down by a little at halftime and going into the locker room, it was like, we have to score. And it was like very, getting aggressive with Josh Johnson, but was very conservative with Brock Purdy. So I just think, sometimes when the pressure mounts, I think Kyle gets tight.
Yeah, he chooses some weird times. Like, it was interesting to me, and he did this with Trey Lance too. So when Jimmy G was out, you go on the road against an undefeated team. At that point was the best team in the league early in the season, mind you, but the Arizona Cardinals were the best team in the league, undefeated, good defense on the road, Trey Lance's first start, and you go for it on every fourth down that you can. Like, what? Why would that be the decision making? He just chooses the weirdest times to be really aggressive or really conservative. I don't understand it sometimes. I don't feel like there's rhyme or reason a lot. Gammon says Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter also said that McCorkle Jones would be QB at 3. They hold zero water with these fans. There was a lot of people that had McCorkle as the third pick, no doubt.
Yep.
Edgardo said the Shanahans have never developed a quarterback in their careers. Larry, they won't dominate the NFC. Philly is the bully on the block.
No way.
They have
Philly,
Hurts.
let's look. Okay. So what? They just lost their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, their best defensive lineman, their best safety, their number one running back. I mean, they've lost a lot. I mean, the Eagles have lost a significant amount. They've lost multiple players off their front seven, and both coordinators. I mean, I'm not saying I do believe the Eagles are the Niners' number one competition, but let's revisit this conversation later this year. I think the 49ers are going to have a far deeper 53-man roster than what the Eagles are going to put together.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on this one. I think the demise of or the downfall of Philadelphia is a bit overstated. They definitely lost a lot of pieces, but the way that I build a team, if I'm building a team, I'm building it quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. That's my order. Well, I think they have the better quarterback, regardless of who starts for the 49ers right now. They definitely have the better offensive line. And although I think the 49ers might have the better defensive line, I don't think Philly's that far behind from a starter standpoint. I mean, they still have Graham, Davis, Cox, Hassan Reddick, Sweat. Like that's still pretty good. So I don't think they're unbeatable or they're this bully that can't be beat, but I also don't think that the demise or downfall of them is gonna happen as quickly as we think.
Well, I don't see a demise or I don't see a
Mhm.
downfall. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a two-team conference. I mean, I like Detroit, but Detroit's nowhere close to the Niners
Yeah.
and Eagles. They're several pieces behind. And I think Detroit's the third best team. Some would say Dallas. Um, I don't see the big bully brewing in the NFC. I think if the 49ers have a good draft, the 49ers are going to be the best team in the NFC. We'll see. I mean, it's definitely Niners Eagles.
Yeah. Miguel says they are not trading Trey for Darnold, who's an interception and fumble machine, and thinking Purdy will be the same quarterback. And if they do, LMFAO, wow, clowns. Strong opinion?
Shanahan believes in Darnold. He
He
absolutely
does. I
does.
don't know why. I don't get it. Like, this thought, and a lot of fans, by the way, are starting to come around too. They're like, I don't know, man. I'm looking at his film. It's like, dude, you're the same people that are writing Trey Lance off after 3 games, but after 56, you want to give Sam Darnold the chance? Come on, man. Like, let's have some real conversation about your opinion on this.
Well, this is also what I said before. It's like this incredible, intense desire to align your opinions with what the Niners do, and then just be, it was great. You got your Tony the Tiger take. They're great.
Yeah. I got it. Uh well, we got some chat crime in here. He says, poop pants, shut your mouth. Or keep your mouth shut. Trey for MVP 2024. All I'll say is when Trey played with a full house, they won and they didn't lose with CMC. I think both those things are fair or true.
I mean, CMC is going to make anybody better.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. What's up, Itchy? You guys' names, man, they're out of control. Out of control. 2.0 says, who says bye to an executive when they leave with their fingers crossed emoji? Clearly, Trey is begging to get out. Why would he want to stay here? Well, I don't know if he necessarily would want to stay here. But supposedly the young kids all say that the crossed finger is like wishing good luck. And I've had multiple people that are much younger than myself tell me that's what it means. So my assumption is that's what it means, but who knows?
Who knows?
808 Niner says if Brock Purdy struggles because of his injury, you have to turn to Sam or Trey. Who's the only thing that you have to say about him is he's a good guy. They are tanking his trade value. They just need to wait to see how Brock Purdy looks. I agree. I think they're tanking his trade value.
The one thing about it, though, it's a unique situation because I think that, let's just say Tennessee is interested. I don't know that anything John Lynch really says is going to impact Rand Carthon's deal. I mean, and who knows? You know, if it really is Tennessee that wants him, and if the 49ers are speaking, are operating in this weird fashion, for all we know, they've already agreed to the terms. You know what I mean? I mean, we don't know. For all we know, I mean, if I'm Rand Carthon, I'd like to know going forward what my offseason looks like, especially my first offseason. So, maybe John Lynch has said, hey, look, we just got to make sure that Brock's, still can throw, and there's not a lot of, we got to take a look at Sam, but let's agree to this trade and we'll consummate it on draft day. And a lot of people don't believe that. I did a deal today with Jack Hammer. He says the cap penalty is too severe. They won't move him on draft day. I always think of the cap as something that can be massaged and kind of worked around. And I'll stay with my take that I think he gets moved on draft day.
Yeah, I think it's a strong opinion for sure. And I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility. I don't think it'll happen, but I don't think it's completely out of the realm.
A lot of people don't think the Niners are going to get the kind of offer, though. I think seen lots of, I saw, was it Mike Silver who said the other day, or somebody said, oh, maybe a 3rd round pick or something like that. I think his value is far greater than that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, maybe. Jesse says, do you really think Sam will beat out Trey? Trey knows the defense better than Sam.
I think it's impossible for Sam to beat out Trey.
I agree. But things aren't, I mean, the deck might be stacked, right? Like they may have already made the decision. Who knows?
Right.
Edgardo says, hot mess QB room. Let's stop lying. Brock noodle arm Purdy. Trey is it on my turn? Or is it my turn yet? Lance, Sam, I see dead. Okay, yeah. I see ghosts. I see dead people. That's funny. Not one elite to win a Super Bowl. That was really hard to read. I also know that you have to shorten things up because you got $5. You only have a limited character space. Sorry for butchering that. I think I get the gist though.
Edgardo, I'm gonna next time I see you, I'm gonna hand you 2 commas. you're you need some commas or something. I mean,
Well, it's hard. I don't know
that
if you've
super
ever done a
chat.
super chat, but it gives you a limited character space. So you really have to like play within this 50 character space limit. It can be tough for sure.
I mean, they're talking about a man who needed a comma there.
Fish and Chip says, choice, we can't win a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan handcuffing on QB play. Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing. Like, do we think that Kyle Shanahan handcuffs his quarterbacks a little bit?
I would say no. I mean, he's got a really good play action game. They almost always have a strong run game. The weapons that I mean, handcuffs. I'd love to be handcuffed with the weapons that the Niners have. You got the best left tackle in the game. You got a collection of probably the best collection of weapons in the game. You've got one of the best defenses in the game. You've got one of the best play callers in the game. I mean, I don't know that I would agree.
He says, hot take. Brock Purdy for a top 80 pick. Thoughts? Who do
I
you
mean,
think has better trade value right now? If they were to trade them both today, who do you think would net more, Trey or Brock?
you know what? That's really interesting. I would say that once again, that is totally, you know, it only takes one team to make a deal or, to find a trade partner. All it takes is one team with interest. So it's totally beauty in the eye of the beholder. It's all like, is there a general manager currently in power that needs a quarterback? And of those guys, how many of them have Brock higher rated as opposed to Trey? My guess is if you polled every GM in the entire league, my guess is more of them would want to trade for Brock based on his success than Trey. But I bet you the people that like Trey are passionate about him and would really believe in him. So ultimately, it only takes one team to be interested to have a deal.
So you're saying that
I'd say
more
Brock.
teams would want Purdy, but it's possible that you could get more back for Trey
Yeah,
based
I think
off of
so.
because it
Yeah,
just
because
takes the one.
Trey's got traits that make you dream. I understand. Believe me, when you're saying and others have said, "Hey, you know, Purdy's upside's too low, and I want somebody with a higher upside," and I get that whole argument, and I understand why people look at Trey and are tantalized by the arm strength and the athleticism and the total skill set when you really think about it. But it's a little bit of a projection. But if you believe in it, then you could allow yourself to dream big, and then maybe you'd be willing to pay big.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, this was fantastic. I think it was everything that I had hoped it would be when I invited Larry on the show. We really only got to like one big topic. Now we branched off into a bunch of different things. It was a great conversation. Larry, I'm definitely having you back. Hopefully, you're going to have me back on your show at some point. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
coming on, man.
Dude,
Thank you so much
anytime,
for
man.
coming on.
Anytime.
Link is in the description to subscribe to Larry's channel. If you're not already, I'm sure you are. Larry, what do you have coming up the rest of the week?
Oh, dude, I got a ton. What do we got? Let me see here. Let me just check out my notes here because I make a schedule every week.
Nice.
So, and you know how it goes. It's like you got so many different things going on. Okay, here it is. So today I'm on with you on this channel. Tomorrow, Vish is going to join me. So Vish
Nice.
will be with me tomorrow. And also tomorrow is baseball opening day. Giants play the Yankees in the morning. And so when that game's over around 1 o'clock, I'm going on post game Giants Yankees. And former Giants assistant GM Ned Coletti is going to join me to talk a little bit about the Giants in the opener. So Vish at tomorrow night and Ned tomorrow afternoon. And then I'm later in the week, I'll be appearing on Ryan Hensley's channel on Sunday morning. So a lot
Nice.
going on, but it should be I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
I love it, man. Ryan is actually in the chat and says, I like Larry a lot, but I disagree with him sometimes when talking quarterback. I like Larry a lot also, and I do disagree with him when we talk quarterback. I don't even know how to say your name, so I'm just going to skip that part. It looks like Velo or Veho, but there's a one in there. You got me really confused. Either way, trading Trey would be like the Bucks trading Young. Yeah,
trading
maybe.
the Bucks trading Young. Who's Young?
I don't know. Is he talking
Oh,
basketball?
maybe he's talking about Tampa Bay Bucks trading
Oh, Tampa
Steve
Bay
Young.
Bucks. Okay. Oh, Steve Young. Steve Young. There you go.
Steve
That makes
Young.
a lot more
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah. Yeah,
Those Bucks. I was thinking
I
Milwaukee
kind of
Bucks. I'm like,
agree.
dude, I don't
Yeah, because
watch
well,
the
he
Milwaukee
spelled it
Bucks.
with a K. But yeah, I agree. I'd be and the Bucks, blew that. I mean, that was not a
Completely.
good trade for them.
No.
That's my big concern is the Niners are going to trade Trey and he's going to become a star somewhere. I don't want to see Brett Favre. He started in Atlanta. Does anybody even know that? No, because they traded him early on to Green Bay and then he became a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can happen.
Can happen.
Fish and Chip says one, QB is not allowed to read the D and audible in Kyle Shanahan's offense. I mean, it's kind of true, I guess, from what you hear, is there's not a lot of audibling that can happen. I mean, it sounds like they get kind of two plays. It's a run or a pass, and they got to choose based off of that. But maybe, I mean, if they think that Purdy's the guy, that he pulls the reins back a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Larry, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Chat,
Anytime, dude.
appreciate you. I'll probably do a call-in show tomorrow, so stay tuned.